Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's breakfast somewhere, so eat up. Welcome to Breakfast with Vinnie. Food for thought. Frank, thanks for being here today, man. It's really great to have you on the show.
Vin, this is all I have to say. It's incredible. For me, that's all I could say. First of all, seeing you, talking with you, and doing this great podcast that you do is just, I watch it all the time. All my friends watch it. Yeah, I tell you, but they all know you're a genius. You're a genius in so many aspects of life. We all know.
I wish I was. That's really kind words, Frank. I'm telling you. I mean, I wish I was. Sometimes I don't even remember what I had for lunch, you know.
You're the
But you know, I'm glad that you like the show. And this is a long time coming, long overdue. I mean, and I've known, I don't know, we've known each other a long time.
Yeah, I think about and I have the picture of it, of NAMM show when I was playing. I was doing like some snare drum thing. It was 1987. That's the year that sticks out. Yeah. And it was towards the end of the day of the NAMM. I think it closes at 6. And Kim we weren't even married, but Kim would come with me to the shows.
Yeah.
And there was one of those Gladstone pads. You remember that go on the snare drum, the rubber pad? And it wasn't even at a drum booth. It was in a piano section.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went over to it. I'm doing my little molar thing that I'm, trying to get. Kim went to get popcorn on one of the popcorn stands. You were there with it, and then you tapped me on the shoulder. You just like, hey, is that you're doing the molar with a stroke or whatever? And I tell my friends and everyone, I turned around and looked at you, and I just looked again. And I can't say what I said here on the. I go, you gotta be, you know what, kidding me?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Forget it. And I think I said to you that I said, you know what? You wrote that article in this magazine. It was one of those percussion. I can't remember which magazine. PAS. Let me remember what it was called. Club Date or Club Death. Remember that?
I sure do.
I
Yeah.
read that article and I said, this guy is. First of all, he's right on the money. Secondly, he's hilarious. So, and when I met you, I told you that, and I thought, oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if anybody's qualified to talk about all that stuff, you certainly are. But I mean, look, for people that aren't familiar with your background, you studied for a long time with the late great Jim Chapin. Speaking of
Yeah.
more, right?
Yeah. And and I got and even, who I went recently for, they had like a tribute to Dom Famularo, as you know.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah. And my first one was Gil Brines when we first moved from Queens to Long Island. And I'll never forget, Gil had 2 books that he had his name and Louis Belson's name on it. One was 4/4, and one was an odd time book, which it was difficult. I didn't even know how to read it then. But Gil Brines had a local store right here, and my mother would take me to him. I wasn't practicing. He would put me, I never forget, he had the Roy Burns big band charts that I was like, this is way above me. I could fake it by hearing it and try to play. I wasn't reading it. But I went to Gil, and I wasn't serious. And then finally, I saw Dom, and then I went to Dom, and he got me going with a lot of things, the reading and the technique. And then he turned me on to, those days at the stores, we had some great people coming through. And that's when I first met Jim Chapin, which I was like, oh, man, Jim Chapin. And Dom goes, why don't you take some lessons with him? So I started going back and forth. And that led me to, Al Miller, who and I'm Matt Miller, as you know, is your the biggest fan. And I talk to Matt all the time. And Al got my reading together. So, but Jim was, we laugh about it, the technique, the molar technique, and he became a dear friend. And I started subbing for Jim. His wife then, Manya, would call me, and I would do jazz gigs, out east on the island.
Sure.
And got to play with some good players, a lot older than me. But yeah, Jim, as you know, and we have stories with you and him in my car, you on the back headrest, him on the dashboard, If I only had that on video.
We got some stories, man. Oh, definitely, definitely. But I mean, talk about not just dedication, but just, I mean, it was beyond dedication. Those guys, Jim, I mean, I remember he told me once, might have been one of the first times I ever met him, where he said, "You know that you do this naturally, don't you? You know that you do the molar naturally." I'm like, "Whoa." And I was like, what is that? And he told me, I was like, "Oh, really? Okay." And I mean, I saw him in a bunch of different settings. I remember being at a clinic in Germany. He was there, and and then he'd be at a PAS show, and a bunch of places. And I'd always see him. I always had the pad with him, and so yeah, but yeah, there were. I mean, because back in those days, what he had, like Sam Milano, another one, may he rest in peace, and he had the metal drumsticks, right? And he was where was he at Manny's or something, right? Or
Yeah, I knew him then when he had his own place in Manhattan. He was on like the second or third floor. I still have, like, he would write the real skinny books on every different thing, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
I have him buried somewhere on the shelf here.
I remember I bought a pair of metal sticks from him once. They sold them. He goes, "Use them, right?" And they were kind of thin, but I remembered I used, I was sort of like, I practiced with him. I practiced with him before he gig. And when I went to the gig, when I got to the gig, my sticks felt like balsa wood. And
That's right.
it was so late that I couldn't even play. I
No,
couldn't play.
yeah,
What are these things, What,
friggin' weights, and you're like, what the hell? You pick up, and you think you're gonna be fat, but you couldn't even control the stick.
yeah, it was crazy, right? So anyway, but yeah, yeah, it was some crazy stuff. But yeah, so and you are definitely a prime exponent of the molar if I've ever seen it. So it's amazing how you can incorporate that, because I think a lot of people probably get hung up on the mechanics where they break things down and then they can't really integrate it. So you have integrated it completely. So
Yeah,
and everything else. When you teach people that technique, do you teach them how to sort of break these things down into little small components, or do you just sort of
like you said, and he would say it too, Jim. Like, one thing was great about Jim, or a lot of things, he would watch any player, you know, and the heaviest rock player, and he would find something and say, like he said to you, he would find something and say, you're already doing the molar stroke, because you really is. And that's what I'll do with students, just to get this motion here, that just like this. So once they could see that, it's like throwing a ball. I always say, there's a natural motion.
exactly? It's completely natural motion.
It
But
is.
and I think that I've seen people try to demonstrate it. They get into all of this thing, and I'm like, when does anybody, like, nobody said to me when I was trying to learn how to ride a bike, "Okay, first put your foot on, then put your knee. Now hold your knee up like this. Now, but I mean, you don't. That's not how you. I just don't think it's a natural way of doing it, and people are probably going to, come down on me for saying that. Say, "Well, I teach that way, and it works great." Okay, great. Do your thing, man. Whatever works. I'm fine. But I'm just saying that for me, I just think that, you just, all you got to do is, yeah, if you're going to swim, or you throw a ball, you know, I see a lot of people that they're doing like this, and
Right.
eh, like, what, I don't know what this is, it's like they're doing it, they're sitting up high and they're doing this. And, I swore I'd never do a video with one of these things because there's so many of them out there and I'm so over them. But here I am with a pair of sticks talking about this now. Yeah, yeah, great. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what that is, because, I'm wasting a lot of money. But whereas this, that's conserves energy, I mean, I think, and it's not about, where you have to, it's the basic, the idea is good even if you're not accenting it. The whole idea of doing this, even if it's the same volume, is there's a difference between this and this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's is also at the heart of the molar thing that maybe some people don't understand, or they don't teach, or they, you know what I mean, it goes past them.
And you hit it, like with me. I'm a lefty, So when I was going to Jim, it was funny because he'd be right across from me. So it was like my right arm would match up with his left. So in a way, it was like a mirror thing,
Right.
But he would say to me before I knew anything about down, tap, up, whatever, play me alternating triplets, accent each downbeat, one triple ticket, right? And I do that with students. So and as an experiment, if you're doing that, as you build the speed, if you give in to your body, you start getting this natural. Like I've had students that know nothing about it, but all of a sudden, and Jim, I'll never forget, he said, all he did was take my arm one time. He goes, you already have that technique. Here, just let this go, hold my, and he would do stuff like that. So he came from like stuff I was already doing, but just fine-tuned it, as opposed to let's start from scratch. Because if you do this with a student, here we go. Down, tap, up. It's like all these, like you said. Now, once they understand a basic motion, then you could break it down. Go, well, you can. Now you could see where there's these kind of different strokes with the down, the tap, and the ups. And you start, but it's basically just getting that more, and even Jim, through the years with him, because I would do this thing where it was like this, like you would just be, right? Like the stick is totally down. So years later, Jim goes, yeah, don't teach this so much anymore. Keep it more level. And his experience was, he goes, you remember Gene Krupa? You would see him on the toms and he, his sticks were kind of pointed down. Like he would say, he goes, so when you're doing this, now I'll still do it as a warm-up, but he would say, kind of don't make it so much here, keep it a little more level. So he would fine tune his own. That's the thing about him, and as you know, a great teacher, like stuff.
To those guys' credits, and there were a lot of those guys that, many people would call the old timers, right? But that he's not the first one that would admitted to me, like, oh, I had to refine my thing over the years, hope I didn't screw up any people. There's one very famous one that I thought he would have said that to me. And I thought, okay, at least he's being honest, but they refined their thing. And I think, it's not really fair to call us guinea pigs. I think it's really, it's give and take, man. It is what it is. Like what you just said, right? So you level, this, that, and the other thing. If you were sitting down at the drum set, right, and you had somebody who was 5 years old standing behind you when you really like wanted to play the drums, and they're just watching you play the ride cymbal, right? Right. And they're going to watch you play, and they're not going to sit there and go, they're taking it in and they're going to copy it, mimic it, because they've got all this information now. They've had it for years and they copy it and mimic it. And look what happens, ta-da. You know what I mean? It's they get the whole picture and you just copy it. That's just how we learn. That's just how we learn things. That's how you learn language. It's like how you learn how to walk, how to talk, how to ride a bike and do whatever, swim, But you've applied all this stuff to the drum kit. But I mean, the thing about you is that what I see in you is that you make it musical in that you understand the big picture for all of this. This is to get your ideas out so that you don't kill yourself doing it. And you got to make a musical statement. And every time I see you do this, you always solo over a form. You'll do a demonstration where you'll say, okay, I'm going to sing a tune. I'm going to play, and now we're going to do eighths, or now I'm going to take a chorus. Okay. And so that is what I think a lot of people, they're just not thinking along those lines now. I'm not sure if it's a lost art or not, but anyway, you want to take that and just run with that one.
It's like you said, and especially with drummers, when it comes to like there's, I do a lot of these jazz jams and, through the years, plenty of great players, good players around here. And, they want to show, they can play the swing thing or this Latin group, whatever it is. But like I'll do just to test them, like if they're going to sit in, I'll say, all right, here's what we do. You have the first 8. I'll count it in, and here's the tune. And as soon as you do that, it's like a deer in the headlights with many. What do you mean I got the first 8? It's just, or you understand the form, you understand, whether it's a simple AABA, basic 32, can you play the form? Or, not just comes time for your drum solo that you're doing all this stuff and the band like has no clue where you are. That I never understood. Now, an open solo, I get it. Go ahead, do your thing, count us in. That's a different thing. Me, especially playing these gigs, I want to know the form of every song I'm playing because the piano player, the sax player, bass player, they just all solo to the form. They didn't just go, all right, I'll count you in when I'm done. Again, an open solo thing or an open situation is different. But when you're playing the tune, I don't care how many choruses you take, know where you are in the song. Play the tune, and it's just, so that's something that I always try to pass along, even when I'm practicing, doing something with a student with beats or stick control. Stick control, as you know, we could sit on the pad, and I used to do it where you go, all right, number one, number two, you go through it, put the click on, but you kind of go through it mindlessly. You're not really thinking, you're just thinking of the stickings, all right, the next. But now if I do that and say, okay, we're going to count 1 out of 2 out of 3 out of 4, you have 16 bars of number one. Then you have to go to number 2. Now it's another game. You can't just space out on the sticking, So it's like always putting something, or I'll put my old drum machine here, the DMX, and I'll put on like a 4-bar. I'll put a click, but the 4 bars will have a different like pink accent or something in it.
Oh,
So I'll be like, okay, there's your 4-bar phrase, and I'll have them play the sticking. Now, can you sing where those kicks are? So now you have to maintain the sticking and you have to sing, whatever it is. So now
right.
you have to be aware of that's 4 bars going on. First bar has an upbeat of 2, second bar an E, whatever it is. So the form thing is I try to always push because it's something where, well, look, I'm talking to you, the actual proof that you play with Herbie. I mean, I'm talking basic 32-bar songs or a 12-bar blues. That's something. You soloing over that with that, the odd bars there. I forgot what the 9 or 3, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Me and Matt sit here and we fall off our chairs because it's like you're playing. Not only do you know where you are, but what you're playing inside that is just. And if anybody, even understands a little bit about the instrument, it's something that it's beyond its comprehension. It really is.
It's a
To
fun.
have that, the internal, what you have is insane, pal. I'll tell you that. Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we all had to work on things, and I mean, I think it's a combination of things. And thank you for your kind words. Seriously, thank you for the kind word. I mean, I love that tune, and all musicians love that tune. It's a great tune to play over, and it's just a combination of being able to somehow have an innate understanding and to get that kind of thing and developing it. You gotta work at it, but it's I mean, that's one thing, but I think that even over a 32 bar tune or whatever it is, it's still a challenge for people just to be able to sort of, I don't know, like you were talking about singing. Okay. How important do you think it is to be able to sing what you play before you play it?
That's the old saying. I forgot. I mean, it's been around. If you can't say it, you can't play it.
Yeah.
And I do with students because it's true. They could be doing something, but as soon as you say count out loud, what happens? And that's what I try to, show them that when they'll say, oh, don't worry, I'm counting in my head. Well, why can't I, why can't I hear? And as we were taught, the voice is the fifth limb. So something else, if if I'm working on maybe Jim Chapin's, his Independence book. So if I'm doing a pattern, now I'll go through reading some kind of like either a big band chart or syncopation, ba-da, do-dee, go-da, and I'm still playing, or whatever the pattern is that you're chaping. Now I'll just sight read and sing out loud. And especially long notes, short notes, where, again, now I don't want to get over but playing big band. That's a whole nother thing. How do you phrase with the horns? Reading is one thing, to play the kicks, but how do you play the kicks? The phrasing, long sounds, short sounds. That's something that's not really so much taught, as opposed to let's just do the independence. Da 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 da. Now do it with your foot, hand, foot. Da boo da boo. But how do you phrase that in that setting where you play a long sound, where you use a roll, or a cymbal,
Right.
right? Where that's how you hit a short note or a long note. And that came years for me, where I would listen back when I would take a cassette to a big band rehearsal. And I thought I was the crap, man. I was tearing it up. And then you listen back, I'm going, but you're playing cymbal crashes. They're going pop, pop, or whatever it is. You're doing these long, they're playing short, or
Yeah.
trombone and trumpets. How do you phrase low, high, And then when I listen back to all the great drummers, playing a big band, reading is one thing, yes. How do you play that chart? We talked about, remember the one night I was like watching Ed Shaughnessy and we were going back and forth with the
Yeah.
video of just watching Ed. And then who was the other drummer? You told me that, and I didn't recognize him. Then I go, I should have recognized him when he was filling in for Ed Shaughnessy. Geez, I can't. That shows my mind.
Shirley?
Yeah, that's right. When you say, oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you watch that and Belson and those. How do you, phrasing it? But I think the singing part. Like when I was in my cousin's band, when I first got out of high school, I didn't go on to college. Maybe I should have. I could have been a doctor by now, Vin. We would have having a talk now as me as a doctor. Yes. Adaptability.
That's all I do is talk about my medical stuff anyway. So, food, not in food,
That's what I should have been. A chef. I can't even bake eggs for the love of.
Yeah. No, but that makes perfect sense. I'm telling you, because what you said, like, I remember Alan Dawson used to teach like 6 ways to play the syncopation book or whatever.
Yep.
And, he said, here, I want you to do this. And I thought, wow. But what you talked about, excuse me, it was actually contained in his teaching, whereby, if you play the eighth notes, the detached eighth notes with the flags, the short on the snare and the long notes on the bass drum, it would give you an idea of that kind of articulation. And you're going to look for articulation markings playing at big bands. That's why you want the lead trumpet's your best friend.
Yeah.
You want to see his chart, their chart. So, and all those articulation markings are for that reason. How are you going to play them like that? But even if you didn't read, like Buddy knew that instinctively. He
Yeah.
didn't read music, but he knew instinctively how to articulate correctly like that. The short staccato notes, the long ones, which ones needed a cymbal, which ones just needed a bass drum, all of that stuff. So it's very valuable, absolutely. But and speaking of which, you're probably the only person I know of that could go from a big band gig to a trio to a rock disco gig and then leave that and then go and play a cajon somewhere, with dishes and, like maybe like a splash cymbal and maybe some bongos, one day
Yeah.
and do that consistently, more than anybody that I've ever met. And that takes a lot of everything. It takes a lot of stamina, a lot of skill, driving around your stuff up, unpacking it, leaving drums somewhere. How do you deal with rehearsal time or lack of rehearsal time? Dealing with new people, putting your head in that kind of space. I mean, you're the hardest working man in show business. I can't think of one other drummer that's had that kind of breadth and amount of experience doing that much varied stuff than you. And so I want to hear about that. I want to hear about that kind of thing, what I just said, where, give me a day in the life where you went in and, well, okay, I took my drums and I set them up and we did a big band thing. And then I had to be somewhere else and I asked so-and-so to borrow their drums and then I went somewhere else and, I had a cajon in my car. Go ahead. I got to hear this.
Yeah. It was after COVID, things definitely, weren't the same as, and so things changed. Yeah, but doing triple headers and and again, as I'm getting older now, I still like the last month, a lot of double headers, which is still, especially if you start outside 11 in the morning in the heat and now you're driving. That's the other thing. You're going from one opposite end of the world and then I'm going all the way to the opposite end. So you're worried about traffic. So But yeah, I've done triples, which, and that, it's funny because I could be on the third gig, which is starting now at maybe 9 o'clock. And I already started at 11 a.m., went from, and yeah, I'm not going to be, Mr. Hey, how's everybody? But I love when somebody walks in and they'll go, oh, I'm really tired. I had a gig last night. That's when I want to take the stick and go, come here. Come over here. Yeah. All right, come over here. Let me show you. Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be me now.
My throat hurts. I can't do that song. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do the same thing. Hey, you know what? That song's too fast. I can't do that. Let's not do that. But I've done, yeah, a lot of that. And right, there's been times I've been stuck where I go, boy, someone's going to have to. So luckily with friends or some students that I've had, could you do me a favor and just bring a bass drum or a snare to this next gig? Whatever it is, that's all I need. Or I leave a gig. I've called Kim or one of my kids. I go, look, just go to this place. Just take the drums. Don't worry about packing. Put them in the car the way they are. Just get them home. I had to leave, go to the next thing where someone else is meeting me with drums. So yeah, I used to do a lot more of that. Not so much now, because now everything is so saturated out here, especially with gigs, and everybody's a musician now after COVID. So yeah, it's tougher and tougher, but I do what I can. Yeah, and I again, sometimes, I don't have a choice. This is what I do. So I don't have that choice of and Kim will be the first to tell you. Like, I'll call someone for a gig and no, that's my birthday or my wife's birthday or my anniversary or it's this or this. They've never heard me say that, and Kim knows it. We could have plans when it's Thursday for a Saturday and I'm off, and then Friday I get a call. Hey Frank, could you do it? Yeah, I could do it, and I'm gonna do it because that's what I do. That's how
Right.
I've lived. Yeah.
But you've also been in situations like that where all of a sudden you get a call the last minute, you show up, you got your stuff ready, you know the tunes better than they know the tunes.
That's the other thing Vin. And I've
And
gotten some problems here. This is where me and Veets can relate, where you get like a reputation as meanwhile, yeah, me, I'm
then
the
you're a
night,
troublemaker, right? All of a
yeah,
sudden. Okay.
because when I finally yell at someone or lose it on stage because they don't even know how to count the song in, they can't give me a tempo, they don't know the ending, and they're looking at me. And I'm like, enough already. Learn it. So
Yeah.
I lose it, and then I'm the troublemaker or the hothead. I love that. And meanwhile, that's the furthest thing. But they're just, like I said, they just a lot of. I gotta be careful here because but yeah, there's a lot of hacks that took over that. Now they get in that right scene and they bring people. So all of a sudden now they're musicians and they're, meanwhile they're playing the same songs and they still have to rehearse the same songs. And like, going back to in the days of when the wedding scene and the club dates, I know I did, they called them casuals, I think in LA.
Yeah,
But
well, they call them casuals
yeah,
or GB gigs, meaning general business. We used to call them GB gigs in Boston.
yeah, there you go. So yeah, we called them club days. So in those days, that's when you would do sometimes 5 on a weekend, and they were good money gigs. You did a Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And then you could go during the week and do your original gigs at the bitter end where you're making $20. But in those days, the musicians, I'll say it again, that are buddies of mine now that can't even make a living playing, which breaks my heart, that these guys could transpose on the spot any song. The singers would come. They wouldn't even know the wedding song. They listen to it. What's your part you're going to sing? What part you going to sing? Right then and there. They have it down. What key you do it in? Boof. Now they got to use their keyboards to transpose. The
Yeah,
musicians then on the spot, on the end, everybody was aware what's going on stage. You
that's
know, you were on the same thing. If you had to wait a minute, we're going to have to go this way now. Nowadays, they'll be looking down. They only know to play it one way. And you're yelling, stretch it. Those days, it was just, you knew what you had to do. Everybody knew it. Nobody had to look at each other. Yeah. Different world. And I'm saying some of those musicians now that are monster musicians, buddies of mine, can't even make a living playing. Yeah. Because
sure.
of what's happening.
I know what you mean. I mean, I was in the same position where back in those days, you had to be a good musician to do those kind of gigs. Because I think now what you're saying is they figure, well, it's just a bar somewhere. Nobody's going to know the difference. People don't know. You know what I mean? And I think that it's a disservice to feed people that, to feed people that kind of quality, that low quality. Because even when I was playing in clubs in LA, way back in the day, playing like, fusion gigs, the audience was not musicians. It was Joe Q public. The audience were people like, oh, here comes Sam and Debbie again. They're regulars. They weren't musicians, but they showed up.
Yeah. Right.
Showed up and listened, and nobody complained and wanted their money back. And the other thing is, if it was, you were playing a GB gig or a casual or a club gig, and you were playing, Disco Inferno, you got to be a good musician. I used to be in a band in Boston doing those gigs. And I'm talking about, I was in that band with, it was me and Bill Frisell and Driscoll playing bass. You know what I mean? We're talking about that level of players playing these club gigs.
Yeah.
That's how you paid your rent. You know what I mean? And so, and even on weddings, I remember playing these weddings with like George Garzone, and we'd be playing these like Middle Eastern weddings, Greek weddings, wherever. We're playing at 7 and 9, and they loved it. And then all of a sudden, as the night wore on, the drunker they got, the more out we took it, and they loved it. But I mean, the musicianship was like, and you know what I mean? You had to come prepared. There was a lot, and the quality mattered. Now, people are going to say to me, oh, what do you think the quality of musicianship is worse now? You old timer, you don't think the young ones? I'm not saying that.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Listen closer. Okay. Rewind and listen again. I'm talking about, a level of specific kinds of gigs. Yeah. You got a lot of virtuosity now, especially when people play by themselves. And if you want to play an open solo, you can do whatever the hell you want. I then tell you, okay, I'm going to give you something. Here's the tempo. Here's the form. Here's the concept. Go.
That's right.
Okay. Go.
Yeah.
Or just a horse of another color, like my generation used to say. Okay. That's different. But what I'm talking about is the same thing you're talking about, where the public was given, I mean, those gigs, they were treated with respect. The gigs were treated with respect. Now, the club owners expected a certain level of quality, they don't even care, they don't even care, and probably nobody knows that better than you.
Forget it. To go out now and make what I made 40 years ago that's what happened because
Then there's that.
Because of people going out playing for free.
I'll do it for $5.
They just want to play because they have a retirement. They already had their job. They have their day where they make money. So that's what I mean by, so when someone says to me, you're just bitter. No, sorry. Because if it happened to them in their job, then it's a different story. If all of a sudden everybody was undercutting them in what they do, making it good living, I wouldn't be so happy. But everybody now,
if there's ever a time where you don't want to undercut people, it's now, because things are more expensive.
Yep.
You don't do work for less money. It's like you can't even afford to buy a house anymore. And now you want to go out and you undercut somebody else for a gig and say, I'll do it for $5. Or it's like, DM me and I'll play on your record for $3.
Yeah.
I'll do it for $3. I'll do it for $2.50. And a little faster. It's like, who cares how fast you are? I don't care. This is music here. It's not freaking Olympics. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's sad in a way. Look, we talk, like I said, why not to tell you, the friends friends I have, that we made, a good living doing it, of what we did. There was just the musicians were, that's what I mean. In a way, I was spoiled like you, because you just, look at it like, what, right on the spot. They're either sight reading something or they hear right there on the gig. They already transposed it. They have it. Like I said, vocals, the harmonies. Now you could get together with a band. They got to go over the same parts with the same song, and they still don't get it right. And I thought,
you are. coming in as an experienced person where you know the difference and you're going, I got to put up with this. How many years have I been doing this? Right.
That's what happens. And then, of course, you get either mad or whatever. But I mean, I've been with bands when I say, look, count me in. I've already played this song 4 million times. Every band does it different. They all think they're doing the right tempo. None of them has. So why don't you count me in where you want to sing it? No, you do it. You sure? Because I go, if I count it in, it's going to be where it is. As 9 out of 10 times. Here we go. 1, 2. Then you'll get the first person. A little faster. Then the next person will turn around. Bring it down a little bit. And that's when I go, then you feel the hair on the back of my neck going. It's unbelievable. I say, you count it in, I'm fine. But once I start this, and
Yeah.
it's stuff like that where I don't get it. Or counting, I'll say to someone, hey, remember, I have the first 4 bars to start the song. Well, just do a fill to get us in. No. Here's the tempo. There's 4 bars that go by, and we come in. Do a fill, like even 4 bars. That's what I mean. It's just the standard has, but that seems to be a lot of the norm. Whatever. I hate to say, but and
No,
eventually,
get it. It's just your responsibility.
yeah, you
It's the
tell.
drummer's responsibility, and then it's the drummer's fault.
All the time. I tell you, we laugh because I've been in a band where I count in, we start within 5 seconds. One person will go faster, the next person will go slower as they turn around in one song already. And you go, this is what I mean. It's really incredible.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, even in universities, I've seen this, and I hope I'm not repeating myself here, but I remember once where I had to do the name of the word is escaping me right now. Intern. I think you interned for a few days, right? And so I had to teach private lessons for someone's classes and do some other things. And so one of the students came in, and I said, well, what is it that you want to do? And he said, oh, I just want a gig with, Mariah Carey or Lizzo or so and so, Dua Lipa. And I'm like, well, what are you doing here then? Like if that's all you want to do, how much are you paying to go to this school? What are you going to learn? You're going to write film scores too? You're going to like what? You learning counterpoint? You learning orchestration while you're at it, or you know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, I guess, that's kind of the opposite thing where heart was in the right place. Well, I guess I'll go to music school. Cost my parents like $500,000, but all I want to do is do a gig with, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's, I don't know. Times have changed a lot in that regard, Frank. And you've seen a lot of the change and, I mean, I'm not sure how you put up with it, but again, I remember talking to you, hearing the stories that you told about the gigs you did in one day and the just the logistics of doing it, number one, but not only the logistics, that's a tongue twister, but but the breadth of differentiation in what you did. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I remember once you told me that what I was telling you before. It's like, where the last thing was, you had a cajon in your car or something. And I was thinking, after all the stuff that you did that day, I'm thinking, what's next? Are you going to have like a
Yeah.
circus monkey?
It's going to have to be. I'm going to be in a train pretty soon in Penn Station. Well, and you're the king of this. So again, uh, adaptability. We've spoke about this. And
What is
that's another thing lacking. I'm sorry, not with just drummers, with a lot of musicians. They're great, especially now with tribute bands. They learn everything of the tribute band by rote. That's what they do. But you can't take them out of that and go, all right. And the other thing is, I grew up playing restaurant gigs, especially with my cousin. And when I say restaurant gigs, I'm talking the gigs, the restaurants and clubs that the boys owned. And you knew you had to friggin' play low, because if they came up to you, my cousin would say to me, if you see that group of guys right there having a meeting in the back, if they come up to us, there's going to be trouble. So learn your brushes. So as a kid, I knew brushes. I learned. Till this day, I play restaurant gigs where the table is right here. So if I'm playing right away, they're going to blame me, the drums. Meanwhile, the guitar player could be loud, the vocals could be screaming, but they see drums right away. So I'm saying every musician should have to play restaurant gigs where you whisper, and that's a lost art. So I will, like you said, I've gone from bashing at a gig outside, sweating. Now I got to throw a jacket on in my car, get in the parking lot, and go and play to a whisper in order to keep the gig, you know?
That's right. You know what? Here's the thing, though. Not just about playing to a whisper, but it's what is it? What are you conveying in that whisper? Like all of a sudden, if you now have to start playing brushes and it sounds like, versus having a certain kind of intensity at this volume. And
That's
I'm never forget the first time I ever heard that done. There's a lot of guys who do that. They start playing soft and they would just kind of like, just fluff around and this, that, and the other thing. But the intensity or the intent wasn't. And the first time I'll never forget, hit me over the head like a ton of bricks that taught me everything I needed to know in one fell swoop. Was I was in Boston when I was going to Berkeley, walking down the street, and I heard this music, and I went into this club, and it was Stan Getz was playing, right? And and I'll never forget, it was a great gig, and Clint Houston was playing bass. The drummer was Billy Hart. Here's the thing. As I was waiting to get into the club, I'm listening to this band, right? I can hear them, but I couldn't see them yet. And it was steaming, right? I mean, really, like, then I go in there, and I'm seeing they're like this.
Yeah.
And I went, I might like stop me in my tracks. They were turning at this volume level.
Unbelievable. Right.
They translated that attitude into that volume level without losing any of that attitude.
Amen.
You can do that if you're in a restaurant club and you got tables that are right outside your crash cymbal. What are you going to do?
That's what I mean. And I try to even show students low volume should never take away intensity, just like tempo. Drummers, when they have to play low and slow, it cripples a lot of them. Even when I'm on a pad with someone, I'll actually say, all right, let's bring it down to a whisper. And
Right.
to them, a whisper, their sticks are still up here. So I do the thing where I take the stick and I just crush this, I put it right down on top of their stick and make it go like an inch off the damn pad or drum. Now play. Like, it's so uncomfortable for most. So, in a way, I thank God that I grew up, like I said, with my cousin, who was a tough one, because he was my older cousin. So he kicked the crap out of me because he put me in a gig where I was a kid and they were established, making money, traveling the country. And he put me in that gig, but he said, just because you're my cousin, I'm going to, be harder on you. And as much as we get a lot of times really angry at him, because I'd be like, you're my cousin. How can he do? But till this day, I thank him because he taught me out, the volume. And don't think you're all that stuff, And it's a funny story with him was when I was really studying heavy then with Jim, right? And going through the molar. And I felt like, oh my God. I was doing Jim's book righty also, because being lefty, I go, I'm going to do it righty. So I thought I was, like I had it. And I'm doing all this stuff. I would go to the gig and he'd be doing like a Sinatra song and I'd be thinking of like the page 35 or something. And he'd be playing and he would turn around to me and give me this look. And they used to say James Brown used to find people. He would look at me and go, that's it, $5 right there. He would like each time. And I'd be like, he goes, I don't care what technique you have. I don't care what you practice, what you learned today. Play the damn song, because, and a lot of drummers, you get caught up at if someone goes, and I see it on Jam, play a funk beat. Well, they're just going over Dave Garibaldi's book. So they're going to think number 2, letter A or whatever, and they're not even thinking of the song. that they're gonna play, or we're gonna play a kind of like a Brazilian Latin kind, whatever feel. So now they're thinking of, oh, I know this one Latin thing I learned, and they're playing this beat or groove that has nothing to do with the song. They're just thinking it as, oh, that term is that beat. No, just like we practice the jazz ride or go through these books, that has nothing to do with playing jazz, as you know. It's just
Yeah.
kind of open you up a little bit, give you some technical ability. Nothing to do with going to play a pair of brushes now and playing the song. And so the adaptability, which just, you with every record you recorded, is just, I've been getting back into it. I've turned a lot of friends onto it. The Gino Vanelli stuff that you were on, I did Nightwalk or whatever. Or, I mean, it's just the Joni Mitchell, right? When you just, but then from that to Zappa, which again, I read, but what you did and your mind of sight reading is, again, I'm sorry, it's unheard of. It's
I was
unheard of.
well, I was a nerd. I mean, I used to read. I don't even practice reading anymore, to be honest with you.
But that's
I
that
could
is
still read, but
yeah,
at that level, I mean, I spent a lot of time doing it. I was really kind of a nerd and I really liked reading.
yeah.
So,
Some
you know what I mean? You got to really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. Some people hate reading, they don't want to learn it. And in terms of adaptability or whatever that, it's because I listened to everything and everything was just music to me. There was no differentiation of like, I need to listen, go around and turn and listen to, I mean, the most from James Brown to Penderecki, you
yeah,
know, freaking Stravinsky to the band.
yeah,
It didn't matter. You know what I mean? It just whatever. Just listen to music. And so I think that all when you have that kind of mindset naturally, it just you're not building any barriers.
yeah,
I mean, but I did see that at one point, even before the word fusion existed, they were talking about blending jazz and rock. They called it jazz rock, you know? And I saw how some people had a jazz sensibility, but when they played rock, it didn't really translate, or vice versa.
right.
And so I did notice that, I started, compartmentalizing it in my head just to try to figure out why that was, thinking, okay, well, why is that? Because for me it was all good, but then I thought, I see. So having this kind of jazz thing can actually help, this. And I could see why it helps. And if you look at some of the rock drummers from that day, they were inspired. Case in point, John Bonham. I mean, there were times when he would take extended drum solos into Led Zeppelin where he was playing the drum also waltzes,
Right.
Matt Roach.
Yeah.
He was playing Matt Roach compositions in his solo. So those guys, they listened to jazz drummers, Mitch Mitchell.
Yep.
That's who they were listening to. And you could hear it, and it comes out in their playing. Bonham had a fluidity
Yep.
about Mitch Mitchell too, that, and so one hand feeds the other in that regard.
And it's true. Like, and he had some finesse on him. He wasn't a banger. He just had that sound, and when he played, he had the finesse. But it's true. It's the and all right. There's been some. They play jazz, and then some have goofed on. Whoa, it's only a rock beat, but it's not just a rock beat. So some, like you said,
Right.
like no, that's not it. But had you adapt? Like I'll say, okay, I love playing jazz and swing and the brushes. I go, but you went someone like Roy Haynes, Elvin Jones, that was their thing. Just like even now I went, I go through the Robbie Amin book and
Yeah.
Imalabi, the Afro-Cuban stuff. I go, but the Brazilian book, I go, I understand it. I like playing it, but that's not in my blood. So I'd be unfair to say, you want to really get that, go search Robbie Amin and go search these drummers out. That's their thing. You know what I mean? Feliz Prieto, that's that's in them.
Yeah.
Again, I like to understand it. I won't make a fool of myself when I have to play it, But that's another thing, as far as a teacher, and that's teachers I had that say, you know what, go, go check this one out. Why don't you take some lessons there? Even when I go through the John Riley book, I tell students, John's right in Manhattan. Go get it from him. I could take you through the book and stuff, but go search out all these other great players and teachers that have, a real special thing. But as far as making a living, like I said, I knew from day one I had to be able to play. He's Bunny Berrigan with my cousin 30s, the 50s, when the big band started coming. The 50s, the swingy rock and roll, Chuck Berry, the Motown stuff, the 70s, the big disco era. So
Yeah.
you had to go with that and that was the other great thing about clubs. Now it's these bands out here, they're all playing basically the same. They think they're all different. It's the same songs. Let's just a really specialty thing. But the clubs have the same bands with basically the same repertoire. But in those days, weddings and bands, you had to do all the eras. And that was a great thing of growing up in that and playing that. That really helped me because you had to get those styles. And now you go to a wedding, they're all just the same blasting. No one's doing a rumba or a polka or, bossa nova. Maybe one they'll throw Sinatra stuff. So those days was, even in the clubs with my cousin, he would go, hey, this is from the 1920s. You're like, oh, crap, man. And then the next thing you know, he's doing the newest, like the new song that came on in the 70s. We learned it that week.
Yeah.
You had to learn it, and we didn't rehearse. He would tell us, this is the other thing that bands, he would say, this is the song tonight at the gig, because those gigs you would do 5 sets, a lot of these clubs. It was like 9 to 2, whatever it was. So he would go, the first set and the last set, we're doing this song. So by the last set, we'll have it. Like, in other words, maybe he talked it over before the gig, but you played it. And if you had some glitches, you talked that. So the very last set, when nobody was really there, we're doing it again. So you would have it down. It wasn't, let's get together for 3 hours and go over 2 songs. You all knew the song. And there was no YouTube. There wasn't on your phone. You had to have the 45 or whatever and listen to it, and I write my little cheat sheet. So then it was that much, more, now it's at your fingertips. How could you not be prepared?
Great point.
It's right there.
Yeah, that's ironic, isn't it? It's like everything's at your fingertips and you're not prepared.
It's unbelievable.
How's that work? I know we were just talking about that. My wife and I was just talking about reading maps, and
getting to gigs.
Huh?
And even getting to gigs without now, and I admit I'm at fault too. I put it on but those days, if you were lost, if I was lost going to Jersey, I had to try to find a payphone in Manhattan, double park, your flashes are on. You're trying to find a payphone. Where do I go? Whatever, you're writing it down. It's like, how did we do it? How did you find these things?
It's crazy, man. And I mean, for that matter, it's like, okay, let's use this tool for what it's worth without being so reliant on it that we can't think anymore.
Yep.
Like I used to remember dozens of phone numbers, hundreds. And now, and it's not just because of age either, it's because it's all in phone.
Hey, look, my own family, I had to write it down to have it in notes just in case.
Yeah.
On paper.
I think that even now with AI enroaching, it's like, oh boy, as scary as that could be, relying on that. I mean, look, that's a whole other kind of rabbit hole I don't even want to get into right now. But let's say that even with like software that enables us to do what we're doing right now,
right?
Making editing easier, or that you don't even have to. Hey, anything that can make my life easier so that I don't have to get caught up in all this tedium, great, okay. And I mean that's not to say that you can't be creative if you're editing films or videos or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But I just think that you just use it. Most people are not going to use the tools that are available to us now as a last resort. They're going to use it as a first resort. They're going to go to it before anything else, before they even think.
That's it. It became a crutch. Think about it. I don't have to tell you. You're the king of the studios. there was a time you weren't really overdubbing drums, right? Or they maybe if they were really good at splitting the tape, whatever. But you played it from start to finish, whatever it was, right? And now you had the best joke. I don't even know how many years ago when the first you go, what the Pro Tools engineer say to the vocalist? That was terrible. Come on in.
But, they tell the drummer, "No, just give us 4 bars," and they go, "Sucks, come on in. Sucks, come in." Thumbs up.
Well, Neil Peart saying he took pride in playing the whole song, even if whatever, even if he wanted to overdub. No, he wants to. Yeah, it's something to be said about that.
Yeah, I know how to use digital audio workstations, but I still treat it like a tape machine.
Yeah, yep.
I can punch in and punch out. I can do comps. I can do all that, but I treat it like a tape machine as much as I possibly can, pretty much all the time.
Right.
Because it's a statement, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And even though songs or pieces of music that we play now are not really the same as they once were, even 30 years ago, where you would hear a song come on the radio, and even if you could distill the form down, let's say one musician explaining it to another one, go, "Oh, this one is intro A, C."
Yeah.
And you would a lot of the growth and the progress of the song reflected in the drumming would depend upon the story,
Yeah.
the vocal song. So now, people would say to me, and this is way back in the day when we were cutting songs like that. Yes, they had to be accurate, but they would say, "Well, you played the second verse slightly different, than the first one, and then the chorus too. How come?" I said, "Because at the second verse, the first verse, Johnny bought a car and he went to pick up Debbie, and then the second verse, they went to the restaurant, and then he broke up with Debbie, and then you see what I mean? It's like, yeah." You got to reflect. I'm being, obviously, this is for humor, the way that but you get the point. You know what I mean? The story develops. You're gonna honor that. It was the organic development of a story. Now it's kind of like, well, doesn't matter. Just whole song.
Yeah, 2-bar or 4-bar loop, but like
And then make sure you do.
but you playing the song, creating parts. You, Steve Gadd, when you think about what, going in and just hearing it for the first time and playing, like you said, the first verse a little different, maybe a little open hi-hat now, go to the ride, whatever. J.R. Robertson, even listening with Liberty with Billy Joel, the parts that he came up, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Part of, and that's a lot to be said,
It is.
And you're the king of that. How do you create? The 10 Summoners record still is like, I don't care. It's still just tops. It's unbelievable.
I mean, even long before I came on the scene, I'll tell you, Frank, it's like I would listen to the Wrecking Crew,
Yeah.
the Shoals guys, the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, just the stuff that these guys, these people came up with these parts. They became hooks for the song.
Yeah.
They defined, they had a large part in defining the song.
Yep.
They weren't credited as writers, so a can of worms. But anyway, I mean, you're at a position now where you've seen it all and you've done it all. And what do you what role do you see yourself in now? For the present time and going into the future, not only as a musician but for your students as well.
Yeah. It's hard to get these days because of all the social media to really get someone that's serious. They'll come for 1 or 2 lessons and think, and then the next thing you know, I see them teaching now because they came and got some ideas, and now you look at YouTube. I mean, I get it. There's some great channels and stuff, and I see some of my former students have like unbelievable, channels and are doing it. But there's so much, and there's a lot of where you see someone teach you something, you're going, now Mola, everybody's a Mola genius, and sometimes I'm like,
Right.
that ain't really it. It's so to get a serious student like we were, like in those days, like I said, there were times. I mean, I was gigging, but those days, if I was going for 20 bucks, $25 a lesson, I would go at times to Dom, Jim Chapin, Al Miller, 3 in a week. So if I'm going to the 70, 100 bucks, think about in those days what it was, you know? And then when Billy Cobham came to town, he was 60 bucks then. So think about what that was in those times. Joe Morello, I took a bunch of lessons. You know, I was writing down how many people I would like, you know, pick their brain. Everybody from a rock drummer, whoever, Gary Chafee, you know, when he came to town, I made sure I went to him, Magadini. I went to, you know, Rob August, Steve Smith when he was in town. You know, so, and Billy Cobham was great because I ended up taking him to his mom's or somebody in Jamaica, in Queens. So he was in the car, and that's when I even went to one of his sessions, because I helped him out. But it's, you know, you were serious of, and plus, we had to go, like you said, to Manhattan to see Elvin or Roy Haynes or the big, whatever. You couldn't go on YouTube, you know, or, you know,
That's
or you
right.
could buy the record. So
Yeah.
we had to go. It was, you committed yourself, and that's what you did. You took the lessons, you know. I went to Frankie Malaby, not that, but just to kind of pick his brain, you know. And so different players that, you know, that's what I try to pass along at least. You know, and we've had this discussion. I've had the discussion with Steve Smith and Garibaldi because we're all in the same, you know, they all got a couple of years on me. You know, Dave got, but there was one night and I said to Kim, I go, this is how, and I'm going to say this on here, how when I get down and get depressed with this business, and I do, because it's a lot tougher to make a buck, and it's the only thing I've ever done. But what gets me a lot of times through, well, God bless my family, of course, and friends, the health. But there were some nights, I don't know what it was, a couple of months ago, when I'm on the phone. It was like midnight here, and I was texting with you, Garibaldi, and Steve Smith. You know, talking about, and I go, you know what? I made a little mark here somewhere, you know, in life here. So yeah,
We did.
yeah, and that really gets me out of. I still get my, you know, bouts of depression, especially what's going on in the world. But so I still have, you know, and I'm gonna be 67 next month. It goes fast. I don't have to tell you. I still have the goals and dreams, like, because I never really, like, in the day, in my young day, when I knew I was gonna start a family, certain things came up when there was more auditions and stuff. You know, now you're not getting an audition. You got to either just have a buddy in a band or whatever. And I never wanted to, like, really go on the road, especially after Kelly was born. You know, so thank God, because I was the one that was home with them every day with them. Kim went on to work. She would walk in the door literally, and I would leave. Hello, goodbye. Go to what I had to do. I get home in those days 4 a.m. I stay up because I had to feed the baby. Stay, you know. She go. So I was glad I changed their diapers. I took them to school through their whole life. So if I would have missed that, but now I still have that dream and hope of maybe, you know, getting like a nice little, I don't even know if they exist, but something, you know, experience, maybe a nice concert thing or a tour. So I still keep that in the back of my head, you know.
It's much harder to do that now. I mean, but still, they're still out there. Those things are out there, and you deserve it. You deserve that and more. You deserve it all. You did that thing on Dremio that I saw, and I
Yeah, that
thought
was
that
great. I'm thankful for that. Yeah, for them. Shout out to them.
I love what you did. You
Yeah,
know, and I don't. I mean, I don't watch a lot of that stuff. I'm nothing on them or nothing. I'm just saying it's just me. But I knew that you did that, and so I watched it, and I loved how you treated the music as well. It's very, very important because that's the context we operate in. We
yeah.
play music, and that's what we're supposed to do. So, amen to that, man. And may the Lord bless you with everything that your heart desires from now on, Frank. And thank you for everything that you've given all of us drummers, all of your students, the people that you've worked with, and for keeping that integrity high and showing people the rewards that you get when you work at something, when you actually do something and you apply yourself. I mean, we don't work music, we play it, but you're not trying to reap rewards for nothing. You put your time in, and brother, does it ever show. So thank you for that. That's all I can tell you.
You're gonna make me cry. I try not to.
Yeah, I'm serious. You know me too well, Frank. You know me too well. So, and thank you for doing this and for being on this show. And I'm so glad that we got a chance to get together and talk about these things. And I hope that, I'm sure that the audience will benefit from it as well. So
I
God
hope
bless you.
thank you for this opportunity, Vin. This is, yeah, definitely, watching all your podcasts, but this is another good thing for my heart, and this will keep my energy up now.
Amen.
Plus,
Amen.
it's about 10 to 11 here. I'm gonna go up and eat probably something again, and I'm gonna brioche at 1 in the morning.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Brioche. Well,
You take care.
I love you, pal, and God bless you. I hope whatever, keep me in touch with everything going on.
For
And
sure.
just remember,
Yeah.
I'll probably pull a muscle.
All right. Ciao.
God bless you. Give my
God bless.
best home. All right.
Amen.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode of Breakfast with Vinnie.